Now another person with romantic troubles was Brer Possum. You see, Brer Possum and Mrs. Possum loved to eat frogs. They ate frogs for breakfast, they ate frogs for lunch, they ate frogs for dinner, and every way that you could think of, they ate frogs. And Mrs. Possum was well known in these parts for her frog parmesan. It was award-winning, and she wouldn't let anybody know the recipe. So she was understandably upset when Brer Possum stopped bringing home frogs to eat. You see, Brer Possum had gotten a little bit older, and as he got older, he got a little bit slower, and the frogs had caught on. And instead of just letting him catch them, the frogs had begun to taunt Brer Possum. So, Brer Possum was feeling pretty down, and he was sitting by the lake one day feeling quite dejected when his friend Brer Rabbit walked by. And Brer Rabbit said, "What's wrong, Brer Possum? You look depressed." And Brer Possum explained the situation, and Brer Rabbit lit up and said, "I have an idea." And he whispered his idea to Brer Possum. And Brer Possum smiled and nodded because they had a plan. Well, the next day, Brer Possum came to the lake as usual with his frog sack for catching frogs that had been quite empty lately. But when he got to the edge of the lake, he suddenly clenched his chest and got stiff as a board and fell over and didn't move. Well, Brer Rabbit came running out of the bushes hollering, Brer Possum, what's wrong?" And he went over and he shook him and he felt for his pulse, and Brer Possum wasn't moving. Brer Rabbit started hollering and carrying on, saying, "Brer Possum's dead! He's just dead!" Well, the frogs weren't quite convinced yet. But after a while, and Brer Rabbit just kept crying, and Brer Possum didn't move, they started to come a little bit closer to check out the situation. Brer Rabbit saw him coming and said, "Now the least you could do is help me bury my friend Brer Possum. He can't hurt you any more. At least you could help me bury him." Well, the frogs agreed, and they came over and they started digging under Brer Possum to bury him. They were digging and digging and digging, and after a while the frogs looked up at Brer Rabbit and said, "Is it deep enough yet? Is it deep enough yet?" And Brer Rabbit said, "Why don't you frogs jump out for a minute and let me see?" And they jumped out, and he said, "No, it's not deep enough. Keep digging." So the frogs went back in the hole and dug and dug and dug until finally they said, "Is it deep enough yet? Is it deep enough yet?" And Brer Rabbit said, "Why don't y'all jump out for a minute, let me see." And all the frogs jumped out. Brer Rabbit looked down in the hole and said, "No, it's not deep enough yet." So the frogs went back and started digging some more. And finally they asked again, "Is it deep enough yet? Is it deep enough yet?" And Brer Rabbit said, "Why don't y'all jump out for a minute, let me see." Well, the frogs couldn't jump out. Brer Rabbit smiled and said, "Brer Possum, it's supper time." And Brer Possum sat up and grabbed his frog sack and started stuffing those frogs in the frog sack very quickly because he was hungry. He had been dreaming of frog parmesan the whole time. When he had his frog sack full, he got out of that hole and went home. And you know, he and Mrs. Possum had enough frogs to freeze and keep them through all winter. And the next spring, they could do it all over again because the new frogs didn't know that Brer Possum could play possum.